I just got back from my first run of the season and I went straight to my mic, which is super unlike me. I am unshowered. I'm smell bad right now, but I have something really important to share with you. And you know it's important when I go straight to my mic, and it's on the topic of your relationship with exercise, with moving your body, and kind of like generally how to be more consistent with your habits. Because I know that a lot of you struggle with consistently moving your body and doing it in a way that feels good. And we all know from the science that, of course, exercise is so beneficial for you. It's so good for you for so many reasons, mentally and physically. But if you have a history of struggling with dieting and a really toxic relationship with your body, with food, then chances are that you've developed this very tumultuous relationship with exercise, where it's all about pressure, external pressure that this is what you should be doing. This is what's going to help you lose weight, shrink your body. It might be around how many calories you can burn. If you're anything like me, when I was meticulously tracking every single calorie that I would eat, and then I would meticulously track every calorie that I burned through exercise, then your health and your days really start revolving around, okay, how many calories, how few calories can I eat, and how many calories can I burn in order to try to be in the biggest deficit possible. And unfortunately, what that does is it creates this transactional relationship with all of the habits that you're creating. It's no longer, why am I doing this? Do I really want to do this? What is the intention behind it? But it's, this is what I need to do. So I want to talk about this because my relationship with exercise now is so completely different from what it was like 6 years ago. And I just got back from my first run of the season, and I used to run half marathons. So when I first got my Fitbit, and this was back when like I was very, very disordered with my eating, and everything, my entire life revolved around how can I make my body as small as possible and keep it there. So as you can imagine, when I got my Fitbit, everything became, how can I get as many steps as possible? How can I burn as many calories as possible? And my answer to that was running. Of course, running, it was like this incredible calorie burner. And when I would come back from my run, I would look at my Fitbit and be like, oh my God, I burned like 400, 500 calories. And that became addictive to me, to a point that I would go running even when my body was screaming and I was in pain, and I would do these half marathons, and it wasn't really from the intention of, oh my God, I love running and I want to do this, but it felt like something that I should be doing. And I'm not going to lie and say I hated running the half marathons, because actually the first one that I did, I really enjoyed being surrounded by people, and the energy was just really, really great. But when I stopped running, it kind of created this huge block for me, because when you go from running like 21 kilometers, which is a lot of running, and especially for me, I had all of these injuries because of it. I had bursitis in my hip, I had shin splints, I had a runner's knee, and in general, because of my scoliosis, like I had this pain in my back as well. So getting back into running was something I had a block with. And it's something that I can enjoy when I do it in a way that feels good for me. So I want to talk about this and how I've really changed my relationship with moving my body and with exercise. And I was actually talking to my sister a couple of days ago, because she wants to get back into being more consistent and regular with moving her body. And she was saying like, okay, well, I'm really trying to start small. And she was telling me her plan. And even in my head, I was like, that's too big. Like when you go from 0 to 100, when you go from not really moving your body at all to maybe setting a goal of doing 15, 20 minutes a day, it might not seem like a lot, But for your brain, that is a really big commitment. So I'm actually going to share with you a couple of mental tricks that have completely changed the game for me. And you can apply this for any habit that you want to build, but I'm going to talk about it in the context of exercise because I'm really someone who will regularly move my body, and I do it simply because it feels natural to me. It's something that is part of who I am. It is intuitive, it's enjoyable, and this is something that you can create for yourself. Even if you're sitting there and you're thinking, well, I was never an athlete. I was never someone who enjoyed working out. I don't like exercising. I know that it can feel so far away to become that person who's just going to enjoy it and it's going to be part of your lifestyle. But I have worked with so many clients inside Food Freedom Academy who felt the exact same way. And teaching them the things that I'm going to teach you today, it has completely transformed the way that they look at exercise, the way that they start building habits. And over time, it has allowed them to not only create new habits that benefit them physically, mentally, emotionally, but they've actually been able to stick to them. And for a lot of them, it's the first time ever that they build up, created new habits and maintain them for longer than a few days or a few weeks. So this is really important because think of how important your daily habits are. There's this quote, I can't remember exactly who said it, but it was, you don't decide your future, you decide your habits, and your habits decide your future. And there is so much truth to that because you can picture your habits in the same way that you picture your investments. So let's say that you're investing into your retirement and you put $5 a day or, $20 a week into that account. It's not going to look like much for the first few years, but over time, you're going to have that compound interest effect. And what may seem like a very small thing in the moment creates these massive, massive changes over time. And your habits are the same. What might seem so insignificant in the moment, and that's what trips a lot of people up, especially when it comes to exercise. You might think, okay, well, in the long term, I want to be someone who works out 4 times a week for 30 minutes. And if I were to tell you, okay, well, if that's what you want to do and you're serious about this, then if you're starting from 0, I want you to start by just putting your running shoes on every day and not doing anything with it. I don't want you to go for a walk unless you really feel compelled to. And I want you to force yourself other than to just put your running shoes on. You might think, well, that's not going to do anything. And especially if you're coming from a mindset of, well, I need to do this in order to lose weight. I want to get these quick results. Well, putting your running shoes on is going to seem like absolutely nothing. So this is the very first tip that I'm going to give you if you want to build and maintain a new habit around moving your body, is to start so incredibly small that it seems too easy. It seems like it would be insignificant. And this is going to look really different from one person to another. So for example, for me, if there's a morning where I know that working out would make me feel better, and again, this is about the intention behind it. I know that moving my body would benefit me for the rest of the day. It's not like I'm forcing myself to do it, but I know that it would make me feel better. But I'm not sure what I want to do. Do I want to go for a run? Do I want to lift weights? Do I want to go to a boxing class? And I'm kind of feeling stuck around it. One thing that's really helpful is I'll go see Luke. And I'm like, Luke, I don't know what to do this morning. And he'll just say, start by doing 5 minutes of something you enjoy. And this shows you how sometimes you can know something intellectually. I am really great at knowing all of the science of building a habit, but sometimes I need that reminder of like, just start with 5 minutes of doing something that you enjoy. And for example, today, when I went on my run, this was my first run of the season. So if I told myself, okay, I'm going to go for a 30-minute run, or I'm going to go for a 5K run and I'm going to kill it and I'm going to show up, I would have been really disappointed in myself, and I would have pushed myself and pressured myself to do it. And most likely, honestly, I wouldn't have done it at all. I would have stayed home, because that's a really big investment of my energy and of my time. And I don't even know if I would be able to do a 30-minute run or a 5K run for my first run of the season. So what I told myself instead was, you know what? Just put your running shoes on and leave the house, and start by leaving the house running. And if you run for 2 minutes and then you walk the rest of the way, that's amazing. You started your running for the summer. And I'm not saying I'm a huge runner. I'm really not. I like to go maybe once a week, maybe. But just leave the house and start. And who knows where that's going to take you. So I started running, and I think I ran for maybe 20 minutes. I ran from my place to the old port, and I was going at an extremely slow pace. And as someone who is very competitive with herself, I have very high standards. So I think of the pace that I used to run at when I ran half marathons and when I was literally training every single day for it. And the pace that I go at now is much, much slower than back when I was consistently running. And the old me would have looked at that and said, wow, look at how slow you have gotten. And there would have been so much negative self-talk. And this is also your reminder that the way you do one thing is the way you do most things. So if you're used to beating yourself up and talking very critically and negative to yourself, maybe that's in terms of your body, your food, your relationships, the kind of person you are, then that's going to show up in exercise as well. But because I have completely rewired my thoughts and the way that I talk to myself, I have a very positive self-talk now, which is super different from just a couple of years ago. And this, again, is your reminder that this is possible for you too. You are capable of rewiring the way that you speak to yourself and the way that you think to yourself. So while I was running and I saw that new pace, instead of having this like super negative, critical view of my slower pace and thinking, wow, you're so much slower than you were before, I just looked at it and said, look at you. You did it. You're out for a run, which is more than most people would even do. And you're showing up for yourself. And that brings me to the second tip, is to just celebrate and encourage yourself for showing up. This is something that I'm constantly doing with myself, is it doesn't need to be perfect. It doesn't need to be my best. It doesn't need to be this incredible performance. And this goes for all the different types of workouts that I'll do. As I mentioned before, I love boxing. Luke, my boyfriend, he works at a boxing club. And so I will do 2 to 3 boxing classes a week now. And I used to, every single boxing class I would go to, I would go all out. And that was because I was only going once a week. So I was like, this is my one day. I'm going to go all out. I'm going to kill it. And when I started going more often, more regularly, there were times where I did want to go and I did want to have fun, but I didn't want to push myself and be exhausted and burn myself out. So on those days where I show up and I take it easy, I just think to myself, it doesn't matter because you showed up for yourself. And every time that I do that, I feel this sense of pride, and this keeps me coming back for more. This keeps me showing up, even on those days where I can't give it my 100%. So I'm going to wrap this up and kind of recap so that you can have some tangible takeaways. And the first thing is, If you struggle with either just getting started or being consistent with moving your body, with working out, then the first thing that I want you to do is to look at, okay, what is my current level of activity? And if it is nothing, if you are barely moving your body and you eventually want to get to a point where you are moving your body maybe every day, maybe 3-4 times a day, and that could look like whatever you want. That could look like going for a walk or going to a dance class or boxing or lifting weights or something that you enjoy. The first thing that I encourage you to do is get clear on like what would be the end goal. So what would that look like for you? Do you want to get to a point where you are working out 3 or 4 times a week? Do you want to get to a point where you're just moving your body every single day? And that could look different. It could be stretching, it could be going for a walk, it could be going for a run, whatever that looks like for you. What is that end goal? And then work your way back and ask yourself, okay, where am I starting? What's my starting point? Because if ever you're going to a new location, you get in your car, there's 2 things that your GPS is going to need to know. What's your starting location and what's your ending destination? So you have to have those 2 data points. And if your starting location is like, you know what? Right now I'm struggling to just move my body, then start incredibly small. Let's say you want to get to a point, your end destination is you want to do yoga 3 times a week at home. Then all you're going to do this week is you're going to take out your yoga mat. And that could be 7 times a week. It could be 3 times a week. Just getting in the habit of taking out your yoga mat and not putting more pressure on yourself to do more. Just, you know what? Every day, if I want to do yoga eventually from 5 to 5:30 p.m., every day at 5 p.m., I'm just going to take out my yoga mat. And you're going to do that consistently until it's natural, until you're like, oop, 5 p.m., time to take out my yoga mat. And then once you've started small and it feels natural and intuitive, then you can build up. Okay, now I'm going to stretch or do yoga for 2 minutes or 5 minutes, and think of it as like building blocks. And then you're going to do that until that feels consistent and that feels intuitive. And then you're going to work your way up and up. And this applies to every single type of movement that you'd like to create. If that means that you want to walk, you want to get to a point where you're walking every day for 10 minutes and you're not walking at all right now, you're not going to start by saying, I'm going to walk 10 minutes every day this week, because you're going to be relying on willpower. And that we know that willpower is a finite resource. It's not something that you can count on long term. So you're going to want to start really small. All right, well, if I want to walk every day for 10 minutes, let me start by putting my running shoes on and just stepping outside, because that for your brain is a lot more digestible. It doesn't, like, literally everyone is able to put their running shoes on and just step outside without having the pressure of going for that 10-minute walk, and do that consistently until it starts to feel intuitive and natural. And then you can work your way up to maybe 2 minutes walking to the mailbox. And again, you might have this mentality that, well, this is not going to count. Like, this is not going to help me burn calories. It's not going to help me lose weight. And that's actually not the point. And that is a second tip that I want you to, that's the third tip that I want you to walk away with, is that the intention behind it needs to change. It cannot be around losing weight or burning calories, because what you'll actually see is that that has a reverse effect. The more you approach a habit based on external motivation, I'm doing this to lose weight, I'm doing this to slim down, whatever that looks like for you, the less likely you are to stay consistent. Because what you might not know, and what diet culture doesn't tell you, is that exercise alone really doesn't lead to weight loss. It has so many other benefits, but just to focus on exercise, and even if you're mixing exercise and diet, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to lead to weight loss. I'm thinking even just yesterday when I was in my boxing class, I was so happy to look around and see so much body diversity, people in all types of bodies who are showing up for themselves, who are moving their bodies. And if you are doing any kind of movement with the hope and the goal that it will lead to weight loss, what happens is that that's not assured, right? It's not 100% determined that that will lead to you losing weight. And so let's say you've been doing it for 2 weeks or 3 weeks or a month and you're not seeing any kind of results, then because you're not doing it for the right reasons, like, oh my God, I'm noticing it's making me feel good and energized and all of these other things, then you step on the scale and you start thinking, I'm doing all of this. I'm putting in all of this work, and you're most likely doing it too intensely for your current lifestyle. And it's not paying off. It's not doing anything. It's for nothing. So what's the point? Have you ever felt that way where you're like, well, what's the point? I know that I did. I used to think that way about my restrictive eating habits. I used to think about exercise in that way, like, well, I'm cutting out all of these foods, I'm dieting, I'm over-exercising, and I still don't feel good in my body. What's the point? So changing the intention behind it might surprise you in the way that, yes, maybe in the short term, it might seem insignificant, but thinking back to that $5 that you put into in your investment account, it's going to pay off tenfold over time, because you're going to be able to slowly build up a habit that's going to be part of your life because you started so small, you built up on it, and it's going to be intuitive and natural. And the last thing is, even on those days where you don't show up as your 100%, maybe instead of going for a 5-minute walk, you go for a 2-minute walk. Maybe instead of, doing that's like super intense workout, you just show up and do light weights. Remind yourself you showed up. Be mindful and conscious of your self-talk and how you interpret your performance or your ability to really give it your all, and just be kind to yourself. You showed up, and right away you're going to notice a shift in energy. You're going to notice the pride that comes in, and this is going to help you keep showing up even on those days where it's okay. You're not going to have a crazy, amazing, intense workout every single day. That's not what consistency is. Consistency means showing up, and that could look like so many different things. And for me, if there's a day where I don't feel like lifting weights, maybe I'm super sore and I'm tired, then that's just going to look like stretching. I'm going to stretch. I might do yoga. And that qualifies as moving my body and as showing up. So I hope that this post-run episode was helpful for you. Please take some notes. And if you got like some really good nuggets of wisdom, please share it with me on Instagram at Sabrina Magnan Health. I want to know what helped you the most. Now I'm going to go and take a shower because I smell bad, and I'm going to see you in the next episode. Bye, my friend. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you found it valuable, I would love if you would share it with someone you know that could benefit. If you're loving the show, don't forget to subscribe over on Apple Podcasts so you don't miss a single episode. I really love hearing feedback from you, so please leave a rating and review over on Apple to help us get in the ears of more people who need it the most. Finally, come hang out with me on Instagram at Sabrina Magnan Health for more educational content and get up close and personal with me. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you on the next episode.